Tuesday, October 10th marked World Mental Health Day. It was a day to remember the importance of taking care of your mental health. But you know and I know that every day should be a day of taking care of ourselves. It's so important. It's so very important that we do that. I know over the last few years, everybody dealing with the COVID pandemic has caused a lot of depression. It's caused a lot of stress and anxiety among so many people. And believe it or not, a lot of things have come to the surface as far as traumas from our past, and it's caused us to feel away and just feel out of balance and out of sorts. It is so important to take care of our mental health. And for African Americans, it is so imperative that we have mental health awareness and we also go to therapy, because a lot of African Americans do not go to therapy for many of the reasons of the culture back in the day and how they were raised. 13.4% of the U.S. population identifies as Black or African American. Of those, over 16% reported having a mental illness in the past year. Now, this is according to the Mental Health America website. So today on the Journey with James show, I had the opportunity to sit down with a therapist to talk about mental health. His name is Dr. Brian Sutton. He is the co-founder of the practice called Us Therapeutics, along with his brother. And so we're going to get into the whole conversation about mental health. But first, of course, with the journey, we want to talk about how he even got to that part of his life. What was his journey like? What was his childhood like? What was the things that helped him in his life to get to where he is today? We talk about all those things and more. So stay tuned, sit back and relax and get ready to take a pen and paper and write some good notes down, because you're about to be empowered and you're about to get some good nuggets that's going to help you on your road to better mental health. Walk with me on this journey as I share transparent stories of my life and others. We'll explore the ups and the downs, failures and successes, offering each other hope and advice that can help you on your journey. Laughter, thought-provoking convos, trending stories, and interviews. It's the Journey with James show. For agreeing to do this, man, it's really a blessing, especially in my journey and starting this. I've done the Journey with James brand for a long time, but I'm really starting to branch out. And I always go by this saying that, Lord Jesus, I haven't forgot the thing. Oh my gosh, I can't remember what it was, but always thinking about courage. Basically, I don't know why I can't think of the statement right now, because I talk about it all the time, but it's okay. But really, I'm trying to say is I'm taking a step and being uncomfortable in certain situations, because I know that there's a gift in me, and that gift cannot grow if I don't. That's what it is. Growth takes courage is what I was trying to say. Wow. Growth certainly takes courage. And so me even talking to you tonight is a part of my growth as I journey in my life and my therapy and my growth and different things like that. So thank you for joining me today.
Of course. And thank you for having me. Amen to your growth journey. Like that, there's a lot in that one phrase right there. Like, growth does take courage, because complacency can hinder you. It can kill your dream. People actually get too comfortable in complacency to where they get stagnant and stuck where they are. So they kind of kill the dream that was put in them, because they're looking to be comfortable. But growth comes in uncomfortable spaces. That's just how that works.
Why do you feel people don't take that extra step? They kind of get complacent.
I think it's because it's the fear of the unknown. Like, fear is a very powerful emotion, right? Like, psychologically, what we learn is that fear is an appraisal system to warn you about danger. So fear is not necessarily a bad emotion to have. Its whole purpose is to protect you, to keep you alive. When you're afraid, you activate the fight or flight system. Now, there's more nuances that lead up to it, but you activate the fight or flight system, and that's what's kept us alive as people. So back then, and during like the prehistoric times, let's say during caveman era, you would see a threat, like a saber-toothed tiger, whatever it may be, and all of a sudden the fight or flight system will kick in because you're afraid. You'll get ready to fight or run. Yeah. And then afterwards, once the threat's gone, the fight or flight system turns down and deactivates. So you're good. And you just go look for food, shelter, and everything else. The issue in modern day times is that we leave our fight or flight system on because it's more stressors today potentially than back then. So for instance,
Mhm.
we got to pay bills, we got to pay
Right.
taxes, we got to live in this economy. So there's multiple stressors out there that keep that fight or flight system up. So when I say it's the fear of the unknown, we're living in a state where we're constantly stressed and anxious. It's easy to get comfortable with being comfortable, a place of peace, a place that you can navigate, a place that you know. That's why people keep doing, repetitive things. Why do people end up in the same relationships with the same person or the same type of person? It's because you're comfortable in knowing that situation. The fear of the unknown is just one more stress or anxiety that you just don't want to deal with. So people stay where they are because it's predictable. Predictability gives you comfort. Unpredictability makes you uncomfortable and makes you anxious. So we try to seek comfort.
Oh, that's good, man. I love that. And I want to say this to you. Congratulations to you on your doctor of philosophy in
Yeah.
Christian education and supervision.
So it's a doctorate of philosophy and counseling. Yeah, counseling, education, and
Counseling.
supervision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I want to say congratulations on that, man. And I know there was a journey in that in itself. And you talking about fear and flight. How was that for you? How was the whole process in obtaining that doctorate degree?
It was actually really, really difficult. So what happened was this. Um, I didn't actually think that I was good enough to get in. I had a mentor. My mentor's name is Dr. James Maiden. Like I love him like a brother. I've known him for almost a decade, around 8 years.
Wow. Okay.
I met him in my master's program. He saw more in me than I saw in myself. So ultimately, what happened was that he recommended that I apply to a doctoral program. And I was like, I'm not going to get in. Like imposter syndrome kicked in. I can't get in. I ain't going to be able to finish a doctoral program. But he was like, no, just go ahead and do it. I'll actually help you find the program. He helped me find the program. He helped walk me through the application process. He even helped me get an interview with the dean of the program. The dean of the program let me in. And then once I got in, I told her and him that if you let me into the program, I'm going to see it all the way through to the end. Here's the interesting part about that. That was when, at the time, I was going to Argosy University and I was going to get a doctorate of education, which is an EDD. That's different than a PhD. Argosy University, when I was approximately 60 to 65% done with the program there, they lost or stole $14 million in federal funding, right? Yeah. So
What? What?
imagine this. It's an incredible story. So just think of it like week 1 and week 2, right?
Mhm.
Week 1 on Thursday, they were like, hey, I know there's rumors going around that we're going to shut down school. We're not going to shut down school. You'll be able to finish your program. Come in next week, prepared, ready to go to class. All right, cool.
Mhm.
Week 2, that Monday, they go, hey, we're shutting down this Thursday. Yes. It's like, we're shutting down this Thursday. Hold
Wow.
what you got. Your grades are your grades. Basically, good luck. So yeah, that's literally what happened with the program. So naturally, a lot of the students were panicking and were upset. I always tell everybody this when I tell that story. This is where I love being black because we're used to things going sideways. I didn't panic. I wasn't upset. I was like, all right, so this ain't my fault that this school getting shut down. There's got to be another way around it. So what ultimately happened was by faith and the grace of God, I was looking at other universities. And here's the kicker, James. I was 60 to 65% done with the program. Other universities knew about what happened. So they said this, they said, hey, we heard about what happened at Argosy. We're sorry that your program got shut down. However, we can only take 2 or 3 of your classes. I would have been basically, yes, I would have had to start
Ooh.
all the
All
way back
over.
over again. So Walden University showed up and they said, we'll take up to 45 credits that you have. So I went and talked to my mentors, 3 of them, James being one of them. 2 of the 3 mentors, him being one of the 2, said, I would never start all over again. I will go ahead, transfer as many as you can to Walden, and then pick it up from there. So I transferred all my credits over to Walden. They took all of them but 2. So I didn't have to start all the way back over.
Ooh.
But it was a beautiful thing. It was a blessing. I don't want to say it was a curse, but it was a setback. So what happened was I transferred a lot of the credits, so that put me ahead of where I would be in their program. So I kept running into hard stop after hard stop. A hard stop basically is that, hey, you've gone too far in this program for us to let you go forward without doing a residency. I'm not going to get into the nuances of the residency, but basically what it is that it's like a 3-day event where you got to be there in person in order to get credit for it. And right around the time the residencies was going on, COVID had happened. So they waived the hard stop, but then as things got virtual, they was like, yes, you got to go to a residency now. So I actually had to freeze the program and do back-to-back residencies in order to finish. So ultimately, I got through everything and I finished, and that's how I ended up getting my PhD.
What a story.
Yeah.
What a journey. Wow.
It was a lot.
You did it. And it's a lot, but you did it, man. Man, I'm proud to hear that. Because a lot of people would have gave up at the time that they even just said, we're done with the school. People would have just gave up, man. So I commend you on that for sure. And it makes me think about, I love to hear people's story. I love to hear people's story as far as when they were younger and then they become adults or whatever. There has to be a story. I know there had to been trials and tribulations. There had to been setbacks that you had to overcome to get to where you are now. Could you shed some light a little bit about your childhood and growing up and, what you had to deal with?
Oh, yeah. So me and my younger brother, the other co-founder of Us Therapeutics, we grew up in Section 8 housing in Washington, D.C. We grew up in the projects, literally on the first one was Anacostia Road. So if you go down Minnesota Avenue, if you're going down Minnesota Avenue from Pennsylvania Avenue towards Bennett Road, you would make a right onto Ridge Road. When we first moved into Section 8 housing, we lived on Anacostia Road, which is right after you make the right on Ridge Road and make the first left, you have Anacostia. The house caught on fire there, so then we ended up living on Ridge Road itself. So we grew up in Section 8 housing poor. Like, I remember when the EBT cards replaced the food stamps. That's when we were living. Yeah, we were one of the first ones that came when the EBT card came out to replace food stamps. So we grew up, very poor. But luckily, though, I still had my father in my life. So my dad was my big advantage because he was doing okay. He used to be a bus operator for Metro. Do not call them bus drivers. If you call a Metro bus operator a bus driver, they'll try to fight you. I'm not lying. They do not like that, so they're called bus operators. So he was doing okay for himself. He also had things he had to take care of. But the long and short of it was living over in that area, you develop a certain mindset. One thing I actually do love about where we come from is that respect is a really big thing in the Black community, right? Like if you grow up in the hood or in the projects, respect is important. I always tell people because disrespect could result in the unaliving of somebody, right? So that's why you have to be very, very cautious with how you approach people. And I learned that from that environment. So that's one thing that I really, really love about being there, but it ingrains certain things in me. Like, for instance, your disrespect will be met with violence and aggression and things like that. That's the mindset that was cultivated. You develop a very aggressive mindset living in certain environments because it's a survivalist mindset. So I developed that mindset and I carried it with me over into joining the military, becoming an adult, things like that. But then you quickly learn, like, everybody doesn't play by the same rules that you play by, right? Like, everybody doesn't have the same care for respect that you do or the same willingness to engage in certain things that you may be willing to engage in. So overcoming that mindset was a struggle for me, not even just as a teenager, but even into my young adulthood. So living in the projects, living in the Southeast DC, and then moving in with my dad. Moving in with my dad was a very, very tremendous thing. So I was getting into a little bit of trouble. I was getting out of hand, and my mother sent me to go live with my dad. Now, my dad, I love him to death. That's my guy. So I was sent to live with him. And he really did bring me under control. He reined me right in. He told me discipline and structure. Because living with my mom, I was so used to she gonna cook, she gonna clean, she gonna wash dishes, she gonna wash my clothes. I'll never forget this. I had a laundry basket full of clothes. I drug it to my dad's room. I put it in his room. He was like, "What you bring that in here for?" I was like, "You gotta wash them." He said, "What you mean I got?" Ain't no butlers over here. What you mean you wash your own clothes? I was like, how am I supposed to do that? Yeah, exactly. He was
What
like,
you look like?
you don't know. Hey, exactly. What I look like? I'm not about to wash your, I'm not about to wash your drawers. We're not in jail. You lost your mind. He was like, oh, you don't know how to wash your clothes.
Hmm.
So he took me downstairs to the laundry room, taught me
Wow.
how to wash my clothes. He taught me how to iron, taught me how to tie a tie. He taught me the importance of hard work, perseverance, and responsibility. That was one of the
Yes.
biggest things that helped me get not only just through my PhD, but even joining the military to handle my responsibilities and things like that. He was a big influencer of overcoming a lot of potential hurdles in my life because a lot of my friends didn't have their dad around.
Yes.
Mine's was there. So he put the fear of God in me. Like a lot of my friends was felons, drug dealers, things
Yeah.
like that growing up. So naturally, they want to, group you into it. And I was like, nah, I can't do that, man. He'll kill me. I'm not dealing with that man. That man crazy. So he kept me on the straight and narrow. He made sure I went to a very good school. I went to DeMatha Catholic High School. It cost him an arm and a leg, but him and my mother were very, very big on education for their boys. And then I ended up going to college, and then I ended up joining the military, and then I ended up coming back trying to become a mental health therapist and getting my doctorate.
Man, I'm so intrigued by your story, man. That is cool. That is awesome, man. And so one thing that stood out to me is you talking about fathers, and the way you talk about your father, there's excitement in there. It's one of those things where you have respect for your father. And one of the things you said is also is that some of your friends didn't have that, man. That's really, really big in the Black community. What do you have to say to those who are fatherless, who are yearning for that kind of structure and that kind of thing in their life?
I would say this: there's nothing wrong with finding a surrogate father or a father figure for your life.
I
It's
like
not.
that.
Like it's truly not like my spiritual father will be my pastor, right?
Mhm.
So I've always like you saw me get excited talking about my dad. When I was younger, he used to get on my nerves, couldn't stand
Right.
it. He
My
yelling at
son,
me.
I know I get on their nerves now. So
Exactly. Like James, he yell at me for everything. He'd be like, you only got one volume button. It's like on or off. Like what? I'm
bring it
not
down.
deaf. Why are you yelling? It's the most annoying thing in the world. So I
Right.
do light up when I talk about my dad because when I became a father, I found myself trying to instill into my daughter some of the principles he taught me. It's things make more sense when you're now in that role, right? That's why I
It
light up
does.
when I talk about him because I love my dad. I go to him for advice now. But to your point, what would I say to somebody who doesn't have a father? It's nothing wrong with getting a surrogate father. So the reason why I laid that foundation with my dad is I have a pastor. Your pastor can be your spiritual father, right? But my pastor knows like a lot of people in our church call him dad, pops, things like that. I
Mhm.
don't do that because I have a dad. He's my pops,
Right.
but I recognize him as my spiritual father. If I didn't have my dad, he would be a phenomenal role model to follow. His name is Pastor Lou, and our church is in Alexandria, Virginia, called My Father's House on Eisenhower Avenue. He
Okay.
would be a phenomenal role model to follow if I didn't have my dad. Looking for a surrogate father is not a bad thing. It's not. Or you can also educate yourself on how you want to be the type of man that you didn't see growing up. There are plenty of books out there that talk about the growth and maturation from being a boy to the man with your mindset. Like one of the best books I read, and I ain't getting no money for it, so it doesn't matter. Tony Evans wrote a really good book series called Kingdom Man and Kingdom Woman.
Yes, I
Yes.
know all about that. They had Bible studies in that at my church.
Correct. So I don't know if you ever read the book, but the Kingdom Man book I've read the book. It's a phenomenal book that teaches you how to develop, like a kingdom mindset of being a father, being a man, handling your responsibilities. I would say definitely try to find someone that you gravitate to. That's a positive role model for you and what you're looking for. And if you can't find it there, just educate yourself on what type of man you wish you would have had in your life so you could be that man to the next person. Just because you didn't have it, you should take the pain of not having it and want to shelter other people that could potentially suffer the same thing you're dealing with. It's called empathy and compassion.
Yes.
Empathy is you putting yourself in, like, for instance, if you grew up without a father and you know that you needed a father, you
Yes.
can empathize with somebody going through the same thing, like some kid in your neighborhood that you see. That's the empathy part. The compassion would be suffering alongside with them and wanting to do something about it. That
Yes.
should motivate you to want to be that father figure or that male adult positive figure in their life to help them out, to help them navigate the things that they don't know is out there. Because being a man is not easy. It's a difficult, being a woman is a difficult thing, definitely 100%. And being a man is a difficult thing. And one thing that, what you're a man and I'm a man, one thing that other men can share is that you don't learn it on like all at one time. You figure it out day by day. So everybody needs guidance. Everybody needs a mentor. You can be a mentor to somebody coming up behind you. You just got to educate yourself on it.
Oh, I love that, man. It's almost like your misery becomes your ministry.
Mhm.
Things you've been through, it becomes a ministry to others. You went through it, so you can empathize and help them, man. I love that.
Mhm.
And I hope the people that are watching who are dealing with that in their journey in life, they can take that and do something with it, something great with it. Wow, it's such a good interview. And we have more in the interview coming up. We're talking more about mentorship and fatherhood. We're diving deeper into fatherhood, and we're talking about his practice, Us Therapeutics. It's so much more. Stay with us. You're watching the Journey with James show. Transparency. James is worth. You are worthy. You are significant. James, it's okay. It's okay to be different. In the years after, how has the situation changed you?
I think overall you become more appreciative of the people that you have in your life. You love more. You live in the moment.
Encouragement and inspiration. I am very blessed to have this brother as my friend. Some people come into your life and you don't expect things and friendships or whatever, but this happened naturally. Our friendship is a natural thing and is a good thing, man. He is my boy, man. He is a good guy. And I'm not saying that just to be saying it, but he's like that with everybody. Motivation.
The pandemic really just made me realize we do not have a lot of time. That when you really understand that, you start to do the things that you know that you've been called to do.
It's the Journey with James show. We all can use a father, whether it's real, a real natural father, or like a mentor. I know for me, over the years, I had several fathers that I looked up to, and they have helped me to where I am today. And I'm still growing, but I see the significance of it, and it made me think of a situation like I have two boys. I have one that's 12 now, one that's 9, and the 12-year-old he pushes a little bit, and I guess I expect that. But it's like, oh my gosh, really? Are you really trying me? Mm-hmm. But I realized that right now he may not like some of the things that I tell him or, try to instill in him. But I believe that it's going to work out for its good, because I've had people in my life, not necessarily my natural father, but people that were men in my life that did it to me as well. And I turned out all right. So that encouraged me, what you said there. You said when you were young, you used to, I don't want to deal with my dad, but now you understand. So that was very encouraging to hear.
Yeah, because one of the forms of therapy that we do, or that I do, is the most common one I see is individual therapy for anxiety, stress, depression, breakups in relationships. The other one is couples counseling. So in couples counseling, you see the different lenses that men and women look at when it's a heterosexual marriage, right? You see the different lenses that they look through. And I often find myself advocating for the husbands, or the men, I should say, in a relationship, is that women don't understand that there's a level of a little bit of aggression in how men communicate sometimes, right? Like there's an undertone of, I'm being respectful professionally, but I'm letting you know, don't come over here and try it with me and my family. It's an understood thing among men. Like, yes, it's not that we're being rude or aggressive. It's, I need you to know that it's nothing but trouble on this side if you try it, right? So what it is that, exactly. So what it is that dads have to find a healthy balance of communicating that with their sons, because we love them. Like, for instance, there can only be one king in a castle. So it's natural that your 12-year-old son is getting to that age where now he's testing it, because one of the reasons that mankind has survived as a species is the youthful enthusiasm of the young. So what it is that as you get older, life has taught you that you don't heal or respond or react to things with the same vigor that you did when you were younger. Like, let's say you're in your 40s. You don't react the way you did. I am. Right. So James, you're in your 40s. Yeah. You don't have the same energy or recovery rate or strength rate potentially that you did in your 20s. Because in your 20s, Yeah, exactly. In your 20s, you'll
Right.
probably get out there and go get it. In your 40s, because wisdom has kicked in, your body slowed down a little bit, testosterone levels tend to drop. We tend to ease into things, like let's
Yeah.
take a step back and think. Well, one of the reasons that the human species has survived so long is that in those 20s and teenage years, you're full of vigor, you're full of energy. They went out and explored. They'll go out and take risks, take dangers because they feel invincible, right? That's just what it is. So that's where like teenagers are sometimes. That
Yeah.
same energy that's helped us to survive as species, to go out and explore different parts of the world, different parts of the land, is now taking effect in modern day times. To tie it all up in a bow, what I'm saying is, as a dad, using that healthy form of aggression, you're trying to rein your child in and communicate to them properly. That's why sometimes fathers and sons clash sometimes, right? Because he ready to go out and explore. He's ready to go out and see the world.
Right.
You're trying to keep him safe and teach him that there's order to this, there's rules to this. And when you're young, you feel like they don't apply to you sometimes. So now I have to communicate with you. I'm not talking like putting your hands on your son or throwing him through a wall, but now I got to communicate to you that what I just said wasn't a negotiation. It was law. That's
right.
just what it is.
That's right. I like that. Oh, that's good, man. I want to talk a little bit about your company, your therapy company. The quote I saw on the website was the Black Therapist.
Correct.
And the biggest thing that drew me to you, I really love watching your videos on Facebook. And I mean, I'm encouraged by it. I know today you talked about overthinking.
Correct.
And I think that's a good one. I think it's an absolutely great one because a lot of us overthink. And I like what you're doing there. But I wanted to talk about the uniqueness of this whole company that you have here. You're in business with your brother, your little brother, correct?
My younger brother, correct.
So how did that all come about? I mean, to have brothers have the same vision of wanting to help others is impressive.
It is. So it's always a funny story. Believe it or not, we started Us Therapeutics was started with a simple text message of, I texted him and said, we should just open our own practice. And he was like, I'm all for it. I said, what would we call it? So we were running through a bunch of names because we always say this, right? We target the Black community because, like I said earlier, there's not enough therapists like us. So we wanted something that let Black people know, like, where the Black folks are. This is where we are, right?
Yes, sir.
It's all right here with it. So he came up with the name. And then, of course, if you ever take a look at the website, which everybody does, it's forestherapeutic.org, it's all bliggity Black on there for a specific reason. So that's how we started it. But how we ended up in the same path was this. He went off and became a licensed clinical social worker. I went off and became a professional counselor. There are two different career tracks that focus on mental health. Now, I always let him speak about what got him into it. But for me, I was always fascinated with psychology as a whole because I always give credit where credit's due. He was the principal at the math at the time when I was there. So I graduated in 2005. His name was Mr. Burke. Mr. Burke taught the psychology course. And then giving credit to the other teacher there was one of the few Black male teachers there named Mr. Bowman. Mr. Bowman taught science. So here's the thing. I was fascinated by Mr. Burke's psychology course because we were going over all these psychological tricks, all these psychological concepts. And I was like, this stuff can't really work. So in Mr. Bowman's science class, every Friday, he said, if you do a science experiment, because we in high school, right? Ain't nobody doing science experiments, but he was trying to get everybody to be interactive. He said, if you do a science experiment on Fridays, I'll give you 10 extra bonus points on the test. So every Friday, I would take what I learned from Mr. Burke's psychology class, and I would do it in Mr. Bowman's science class, and I would get the extra credit. So psychology fascinated me all the way back in high school. But the thing that really got me was that was the catapult to it. When I started to study psychology at the master's level, and when I started to study the things that contribute to mental health diagnoses, disorders, or any just general situation, because people often think that when you come to a therapist, it must be something wrong with you. No, you can come for anything. It's relationship breakups, relationship issues, general work stress, anxiety. Very few situations have I come across that I would call a clinical diagnosis. Like everybody has anxiety, everybody has depression. But to the point that I was getting at was when I started studying some of the contributors to mental health, I recognized that the contributors were, a lot of them were environmental, and they were similar to the environment that I grew up in. Like one of the things that can cause somebody to have emotional dysregulation. Emotional dysregulation is the inability to regulate or navigate really, really intense emotions. Those are the people who go from 0 to 100 in an instant. There's no in between, right? They just go from I'm calm to now I'm active. Like it's time to get active, it's time to get at it, right? Well, one of the things that contribute to that is living in an environment that's high in crime, with low resources. A common thing among people that have emotional dysregulation is that they tend to live in a single parent home with predominantly the mother is the head of the household, and the mother herself is emotionally reactive to her children. So those are some of the things that contribute to that situation. And now, emotional dysregulation isn't necessarily a disorder, but it is a symptom. It is a factor that you find in people who struggle with intense emotions. Like you'll hear people who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. A key symptom or key feature of that is emotional dysregulation. So when I saw that contributor to it, I was like, that's the neighborhood I grew up in. There are a lot of people running around like that. So it kind of hit me like a ton of bricks. Is that you didn't wake up one day just saying, I want to be this way. It was a series of life events and how you process them and the choices that we made in those events, in those environments that contributed to whether we were going to be healthy or we were going to just look at things differently. Because I don't like to say unhealthy mentally. While that is a thing, yes, but if you're struggling with depression and anxiety, you're usually struggling with navigating them. A clinical definition of depression and anxiety, most people don't have it. Most people don't even have a clinical definition of OCD. We just like to be clean. I can't leave my house until it's clean. That's a healthy form of OCD. There are times where it's taken to an extreme, but what it is that people they're not unhealthy. They just don't have the tools to navigate what they're thinking and what they're feeling. That's what it is. So when I studied that for my master's program, it really, really took hold of me. It really, really got me in there. Then fast forward to where I told you I met my mentor and he convinced me to get my PhD. That's how I ended up as a doctor. And then going forward a little bit more, me and my younger brother decided that we were just going to do a practice dedicated to our people. So that tagline, the Black Therapist, we're being literal. We want people to, when you think of Black therapists, we actually want you to think of us, because we want you to be able to come to us so we can help you. The tagline was intentional because we wanted to stand 10 toes down on the Black community. We wanted to triple, double, quadruple down, all chips in, cashing on Black. We wanted to go all the way in for our people. So we made it clear that it's the Black Therapist. So I always have to say this, though, because for actually positive reasons, we can treat everybody. We do treat everybody, but we specifically target and market to the Black community because they have one of the highest needs with the lowest resources to help when it comes to mental health.
Yes, it's a game changer. That's the first thing that came to my mind is what you're doing is a game changer, because I remember back maybe 10 years ago, I was talking to a friend about some things, and he said he had felt that the Lord was telling him that I needed therapy. Mm. And I looked at him like he was crazy. I was like, I ain't going to sit on nobody's couch, and I'm not doing that, because it was ingrained in me that we don't do that.
Right.
But I actually took the step and did it, and it's the best thing ever that has ever happened to me, because it helped me to process a lot of traumas and different things that I've been through that I didn't even realize that was causing me to react or act the way that I was. So I think it's important for the Black community, what you're doing, that we put that out there, that it's not about holding it in and not, I have some family members, they say, when we're younger, you don't say anything that's going on in this house, you keep it in, and what happens is you build on trauma and nothing gets done. And so I say this is a game changer because you're focusing on the Black community, and we identify, like, you understand, and I think people are more comfortable in coming out and, reaching out to you.
Oh, yeah.
The stigma with the Black community for a long time.
You're 1,000% correct. Like, it does resonate with people. Like, I have, I laugh when you said that because I have a couple clients that be like, "Where'd you grow up at? Where'd you hang around at?" Because I needed someone I could really
taking you out first.
Yeah, I needed someone I could really talk to about real Black issues. Like, are you with the struggle? Or you not with the struggles? Like, I've had questions like that. And to your point, I like how you articulated it because it made me think about this. God put it in my spirit to say, it's a phrase that I created and I love it. The voice you try to ignore during the day gets louder at night. The things that you try to run away from, the things you don't deal with, they come up at night. The reason why I say at night is because usually at nighttime, your mental energy and mental faculties are winding down. Right. Self-control gets a little tiresome. It gets a little cumbersome. The willpower that you use to try to keep things under control is diminishing. So that's why, like, when you said that you go and process and you were getting affected by traumas you didn't even know, that is a real thing. There's some people out there trying to avoid things that they don't want to deal with out of fear because they're worried about how it's going to impact them. The beauty of therapy is this: is one, you don't have to have a severe mental health issue or crises to see a therapist. Usually how I like to explain to people is this: it's literally professional processing.
Wow, such a great interview that will also continue on next week's edition of The Journey with James. So join me when I talk more with Dr. B on mental health, his practice for Us Therapeutics, and he gives some answers to viewer questions as well. So you don't want to miss the second part of this very, very good interview, okay? God bless you guys. Join me again in the next edition of The Journey with James show. And if you want more information on Dr. B's practice for Us Therapeutics, be sure to visit the website forustherapeutics.org. That's forustherapeutics.org. All right, take care. God bless, and see you again next week.